Welcome to the Grind to Growth to Greatness podcast. The best and brightest entrepreneurs, CEOs, creators, athletes. We'll talk to them all, and we'll get the good, the bad, and the ugly on how they made it. Decoding the secrets of success. And now your host, Terry Barr.
And welcome back to Grind to Growth to Greatness. We are here with a very interesting guest. Her name is Liz Toombs, and she is a business owner in the state of Kentucky. She's also a grad she's a Kentucky Wildcat, and she started a PDR Interiors. Now, that might not mean anything to you, but those of you that are in college or have been in college, she's got a very interesting niche. And you know that on this podcast, we like to try to certainly look at the success of her story, but we also want to look at how she got there. A lot of people that are young, trying to figure out what to do with their lives, to hear somebody tell the story of the twists and turns, I went right here instead of left and left here instead of right, and those kinds of things are sometimes helpful. They give you some encouragement not to give up, to stay on track. So Liz is very interesting. I'm going to get into her story a little bit about what she does at the end, but in essence, what she does is she goes into sororities across the country. She's been in over 25 states, over 100 campuses, and she goes in and refreshes sorority houses. And that was something that I had no idea that was even a thing. And for a long time, maybe Liz didn't either, but she's got this niche and she's done a great job growing it, making it into something very successful. So we want to get right into it. Liz Toombs, welcome to the show. Welcome to season 2. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Terry. I'm looking forward to the conversation we'll have.
Fantastic. So Liz, tell me about how you grew up, where you grew up, mom and dad, siblings. Where did life start for you? And let's take a little walk down memory lane there.
Absolutely. So I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, which is the home of the Kentucky Derby, if you're familiar with horse racing at all.
Sure. Yeah.
So yes, I grew up there with my parents, and I have 2 brothers and a sister. And actually, a lot of my aunts and uncles were in town too. So I was surrounded by a lot of extended family growing up. Okay. And then I was a traitor of the family, and I went to UK. I went to Kentucky, like you said. So grew up with a lot of Louisville fans. Hold it against me or don't, whatever. But anyway, ended up wearing blue and landed in Lexington after that.
How about that? So I don't hear a lot when I got on here until I started listening to some of your YouTubes and some of your podcasts. I thought she's going to have a Southern twang. It's got to be. Where did that Southern speech go? Did you ever have it, or did you just kind of grow out of it?
I think it depends. There's certain words that I'll say that you can pick up on it, but overall, I think growing up in Louisville, I've noticed my accent or my speech is pretty neutral as compared to other parts of the state. So it comes out here and there, but and then when I go to certain parts of the country, they'll be like, "Where are you from?" But if you're used to a Southern accent, you may not always hear it in me.
Yeah, I was surprised. My sister lives in North Carolina. She was a Northern transplant to North Carolina, and I think she was there a couple years. And you would have never told her she was from the North. She's got a real heavy accent, so I'm not sure how that all works. But nevertheless, I want to dig into a little bit about your childhood. I don't know how someone goes from being a little girl in Louisville to doing what you're doing, and how you came about the idea that, you know what, I kind of like this whole design feature. I know you talked a little bit about your grandfather being kind of a mentor. He was in real estate. Is that how it all started? Tell me about that.
I would say yes. That's definitely something that planted a seed for me, getting to see all these different types of houses in terms of the architecture, the way that people lived in them, the way that they decorated them themselves or professionally. So I really just saw there were a lot of things out there, and that piqued my interest. I was always kind of an artsy kid, like to draw.
Okay.
So the arts were always of interest to me. So growing up, I'd rearrange my room a lot and just always be messing around at the house and driving my parents crazy, suggesting that we make tweaks to furniture arrangements and things like that. So it was just that definitely planted the seed. And then the TV show Trading Spaces.
Okay. Yeah.
First go round.
Right.
I know it's come back now, but that really caught my interest too in like high school and college. And I just always had big dreams of being able to have my own design firm. Not really sure the path to get there, but that was kind of the big dream for me. And
so did you decide to go to college for that, to go to university for design, or what did you go to school for? Or did you just go and figure it out when you got there?
Well, I had a really good advisor, and she suggested, because I wasn't really into the architecture side of things, I'm more of the tactile side. I wanted to get in with the finishes, the colors, the furniture, those types of things. So she recognized that architecture really probably wouldn't be the right path for me. And so I went the textiles route, which had a fashion focus, but still has a lot of application to interior design and home design. So that was my schooling path. And then I did some certifications after that.
Interesting.
Where I am.
I know I'm actually in real estate myself. I'm in real estate sales, been for 15, 16 years. And a lot of the design is really crossover. I mean, it crosses over from fashion design to, like you said, textiles to different types of things. Even fashion is sometimes very interesting. I'll call it interesting. I don't know how I see these girls walk down with these crazy outfits on, but there's a lot of crossover there. Was fashion a part of your mentality when you were looking at design, or is that something that you kind of get when you go off to school?
I always was interested in fashion. I worked in retail as a teenager, and so I certainly always paid attention to that. And you can usually see those trends. It starts with clothes, goes into the home, and you can kind of see the cycle of design. So it was always there in the back of my mind.
I have a certain amount of, I guess, respect for people like yourself, because fashion is so cyclical. It comes in and it goes out and it goes in. I guess that's what keeps you in business, but I can never tell what's in or what's out. And the people that understand it, or at least keep track of the trends and the fads and those kinds of things, or what's a trend and what's a fad, I don't know how you do it. I mean, to me, it's, I guess, what keeps retail in business. But as a little girl, tell me about when growing up with mom and dad. We talked about grandpa a little bit. What was your mindset? What during, I don't know, talk about, like 8 years old to maybe 15, mom and dad, were they instrumental in guiding you certain ways? Did they let you have your own thing? Did they want you to do something different? Tell me what your upbringing was like.
Sure. I was always a pretty independent child, and so they usually just sort of let me go with whatever interested me. I read a lot of books. Like I said, I liked to draw, all those sorts of things. So they just sort of let me and my siblings kind of run with what interested us. There really wasn't a push to do anything if we weren't interested in it.
Interesting. What did mom and dad do as a vocation?
Yeah. So my dad worked in insurance, and my mom stayed at home with us until I was in middle school. And then she went to work at my school so that she could have the same schedule with us. So,
it's funny in my business. I never say, what does your wife do for work? Typically when I'm talking to us, does your wife work outside the house? Because I think one of the hardest jobs in the world is to be a mom. And, I see that every day when, in my business, I see moms that are especially single moms, that are just having to go to work, having to be a mom, having to be everything. And, so I have a lot of respect in that route. So I try to make sure I'm intentional with my words when I'm talking to moms, but I can appreciate that. So at a certain age, when did you know that was the direction you wanted to go? Like, when was that as a young girl that you decided, you know what, I think I want to go at least in that fashion/design area?
I mean, it was always of interest in late high school, but definitely once I got to college and had an advisor saying, here are the courses you can take so that you graduate with this degree, and then you can move towards the profession that you're talking about wanting to do. So it was definitely at that point. So at like 18, 17.
Yeah, 18. Okay. And if you don't mind me asking, what do your siblings do? Do they have any kind of similarities to their locations, or did they go in their own directions?
Oh, we're kind of all over the place. So
Oh, yeah.
my sister is very artsy and creative as well, but she landed in HR, which is not a creative profession, but she has a side gig where she does baking and has a small bakery business. So I think she gets that outlet there. And then my brother has done a number of things. He's really into like physical fitness. And so he's done personal training. He's doing landscaping now. So he's a little bit more into like keeping active, and doing that type of stuff within his work. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have a son just like that. I have a 35-year-old son, and he's kind of that activity guy. You know, he's all over the place, does landscaping, does things outside. And then my second son is Mr. Fitness. So they're all over the place, but it's interesting them trying to find their way. So you go to school, you figure out your direction, you graduate with a degree. What was your degree on?
Merchandising, apparel, and textiles.
Okay. And I'm assuming that the textile portion of that was kind of the most important for your future endeavors, or
merchandising a little bit, because if you understand what merchandising is in retail, it's like setting up display windows, floor sets, those types of things, and understanding staging of that environment. And so while the way you stage a store is not the way you stage a home, there are still those like fundamental things that you could use in both applications.
Well, that's good. So I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, you went after school, you went to work for an interior design company. Tell me about that experience.
I did. So my first job, though, out of school, I worked for a countertop manufacturer.
Oh, that's right. I did read that.
Locally owned fabricator that cuts your countertop. So it was everything from laminate to stone. And I did that for a while, and I was in sales, outside sales. So I had to really understand like how to build relationships, get out there and network. And, because when you work commission, as you know, you have to really build your network. So anywho, did that, and really wanted to pursue the design side of things still, not such a broad sales situation. So I went to work for one of my customers who had a design franchise. And through that franchise, I went and did my certified interior decorator certification, did that, worked for them for a couple years. And then when the recession hit, they decided to close up shop. Wow. And so I was faced with the choice of, do I go and try to work for somebody else, or do I want to try to do this on my own? And I chose the latter.
Well, it's certainly, you've obviously done a good job at making this your own and going out on your own. Was there a point, I want to talk a little bit, did you get married? Did you have kids? Is there a family dynamic that you have to work around? Because I know this seems to be, the more I read about your company and your contracts are not in your backyard lots of times. They're across the country and you got to travel a lot. Tell me about the dynamic of your company and how that works in with what you got going as a family.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when I first started the company, there was not a lot of travel. I was doing a lot of local residential, light commercial, like office spaces, that type of design work. And then I ended up getting a fraternity house project that I did that went great, that referred me to a sorority house, both on the campus of UK. And so I did those projects right there in my backyard. And it was after that then I was asked, would you travel? Would you go here? And as a young entrepreneur, young business owner, you just say yes to everything.
You bet.
Let's throw it at the wall, see if it sticks. And so as I started to travel more, I started to see how I could create a process and how that would work. And so it's only been probably in the last, 8 to 10 years maybe, that it's become so much heavy travel. And so the understanding is just, I'm gone a lot, July, August, and a little bit into September. My friends know that. My family know that. Like, we have a joke that, I don't really live in one place at that time. Every week's a different campus. And so, you asked me about if I was married. When I first graduated college, I did get married. When I started my business, I was married. That has changed in the last few years. I've gotten a divorce, but of course that's a factor, right? Is your family at home and when you want to be there. But the understanding is it's one season out of the year that's real busy, that requires a lot of travel, and you can kind of make it through anything for one season.
Yeah. So on that note, if we talk a little bit about that in different terms, whatever business you're in, whether it's, and I want to talk a little broadly about that, whatever business you're in, because I'm in a very service oriented business. I work in 3 states. I'm in my car a lot. I'm out a lot. Fortunately enough, I get back. I'm not usually overnight typically, but from a broad perspective, give me your perception and your advice. Give us your perception and advice. How do you communicate and really hedge around yourself so that things like divorce, I've been through divorce myself. How do you communicate on a broad perspective to keep those things from happening? Or is it not that simple?
Are you asking how to communicate with your partner, or how?
Yeah, I mean, from a family perspective, we dive in as entrepreneurs. We are dialed in. We're building something together. Unless your spouse is part of that process, sometimes that builds a nice big void there. And I'm wondering if there's any lessons that you've learned, anything that you've retrospectively come up with to help couples, as maybe one is in, my wife, she's in public and public, and I'm in a private industry. And so those are two different things. So I'm just curious if you've kind of retrospectively thought about that.
That's such a good question. I do think you bring up a good point about when you work in different sectors, or one of you owns a business and one of you does not, and you're employed by someone else. There can be confusion there of what is required in each of your jobs. And so I think it's definitely important to communicate about that so that you can understand each other's positions and where these decisions are coming from and why these decisions to travel and to be away are happening and what it does for you as a family. And I think if you're clear on that and why you're doing this work, then you can, stay on the same page. And like I said, get through that season of heavy travel or whatever it may be going on within your personal profession.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously, marriages end for a lot of different reasons, but I just in the business world, there are some friction points that we run into a lot as business owners, as entrepreneurs, and it's always good to get perspective from those that are in it, have been through it, or maybe are hedging against it, for the future going forward. So I was just curious of what your thoughts were and what kind of role that played in that part of your life. But going forward, you have, like we said, you've worked in a 25 different states, over 100 campuses. How did you fall into or find or whatever? I use the word trip a lot. How did I trip into an opportunity like sororities? I wrote down in my notes, you're bringing sizzle to sororities. It's kind of like a restoration hardware for major sororities. How did you get into that niche? I mean, what was the impetus there?
Well, I talked a little bit ago about building my network when I was in sales. And so that was really how it first came about. People knew what I did and came to me and said, hey, we have this fraternity house that needs desperate help while we fundraise to build a new one. Could you help us? So I said yes, and I did it, discovered I really liked that. And then when they recommended me to a sorority on the same campus, then I said, sure, let's do it. And then when they said, would you travel? It just sort of snowballed from there. And then that's when I really discovered there's this whole, I kind of call it jokingly, an underworld that people are not aware of Greek housing. So it's, the subset of not only college.
That's all right. Yeah,
forgive me. The dog got very excited. Do you want me to stop or keep going?
All good. No, you're good. Go ahead. Okay. We'll just edit that out.
So it's, there's the colleges, and then within that, there's fraternity and sorority life. And within that, there are all these service providers. And so I just started to network in that world rather than the general business community in Lexington. And so then that helped me build my clientele.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me because most people in your position, I would think the obvious is, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to start staging houses. We've got stagers all over our area where I'm in Pennsylvania. So stagers are a big big thing. I do a lot of new builds. So, we have selection coordinators and people that are interior designers that work as selection coordinators. So why was that? Was the decision to go into sororities kind of, hey, there's this opportunity over here, I'm going to go look at this, instead of doing, the staging and the coordinating and those kinds of things? Was that a conscious decision on your part to go that way, or did it just happen that, hey, here's the opportunity, I'm going that way?
I think it just happened with the opportunity coming to me, but then I realized, hey, I was Greek in college. Hey, I really like doing this. I think that there's something here, because the market is very saturated in terms of designers that do new construction. In my area, staging happens, but it's not as prevalent as on some of the coasts where people will pay to have their whole house staged with furniture. So it was well, I don't really want to get into that aspect either. And so it was just sort of trying to find that right fit. And when I realized that this was such a good fit, then I started to pursue it, even though I don't know if you feel like this or not, but when you start a business or you get business coaching, they're always like, find that niche, find a specialty, an area of focus. And you're always like, no, I don't want to do that, because then I'm turning away other business. And so when I finally decided to lean into that, it was like, okay, everyone's right.
Well, it's funny. When I first got into real estate, I got a couple listings that were very, very small. Everybody needs help in real estate, okay? But they're very, very small. It was a ton of work. It was for pittance of a payday. And I thought, man, I don't want to do this part. This is no fun. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to market myself as a luxury home seller. And so I did that. And I really went all in, branding, education, the whole 9 yards. I was in finance before, so I could talk the talk of people with, discretionary income and that kind of thing. But one of the things I found is I had friends and family saying to me, or acquaintances saying, well, we sold our house. Well, I was like, well, why didn't you call me? Well, we weren't sure if you sold our kind of house.
Yeah.
In other words, I pigeonholed myself so soon in the process that I lost a lot of business along the way. Now, that's just part of it, but I can see where getting a niche just kind of is exclusive to the other. So it was interesting.
Yeah, but you bring up a good point. Just because you have a niche doesn't mean that's the only thing you're capable of.
Yeah.
It just means that's your focus. And so, we don't take a lot, but we still take residential jobs and do different things and help repeat clients, but we don't necessarily market for that. So I totally see what you're saying.
Yeah. So a couple specific questions that I have for you. I like to have a conversation, but I like to answer some questions. I sent you my questions, but who do you on a daily basis, because your business is so fluid all the time, I can imagine, things are changing all the time. Who do you go for your counsel? I've got a couple mentors. One is my age, one is older. Who do you go and say, I'm just not sure what direction to go here? Do you have people in your life like that you can call and say, hey, I need to sit down for a half an hour and talk to you?
I do. I have kind of a group of people that come to mind. And so depending on what the topic is, it may be a different person that I call.
Sure. Yeah,
so, I've got a great friend, Caitlin, who is a VP of sales for a commercial furniture company. And so anytime I'm talking about or thinking about anything with my staff or hiring or anything like that, she's my go-to. I call her every time and we just have a great conversation. And, really even a lot of other business things too with her, and just other friends of mine that are realtors or entrepreneurs. They're just really great sounding boards for me too, just to try to just get it out. And then I have a business coach as well. And so it's always
is that Toby?
It is.
Toby. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that advice, now, one of the things I've always struggled with a little bit, I'm almost 60 years old, but let's say from 40 to 60, I've done a better job.
Yeah.
How do you take that advice and vet it for your purpose? Because everybody's got an opinion, including your mentors. How do you absorb that for those that get advice, or even for those that don't? How do you get that advice? And then how do you vet through that and make heads or tail over what's good for you, what's not good for you? I think everybody should have a mentor. Unfortunately, pride a lot of time gets in the way of that. But
Mhm.
tell me how you vet that space for it.
Well, first of all, I'm acknowledging the source that it's coming from and maybe
Sure.
what position they are in. And so, I kind of consider where they are in their career journey and in their personal life. So I understand that there's a little bit of a lens that they're coming at me with that advice for.
Sure.
But typically, if I'm going to them for that kind of certain advice, it's because I really trust and value what they're going to say. And, Toby's given me advice for years, and I slowly adopt it, right? Because I can't just turn on a dime, or I'm not willing to turn on a dime and change something within my business, but I kind of marinate on it, and I observe, other people in business, and then I kind of watch what's going on in my business to see like how that might change. Like we've been talking a lot about social media presence and reaching out to a certain market and how to do that. And it's been a very slow adaptation, but I'm following her advice. It takes a little while to figure out how to do it that is true to me and my brand,
Yeah. So what, I guess the next obvious question is, what sort of, are you I'm going to marinate over this. I'm going to put it on the shelf for a while. I'm going to look at it, pull it off the shelf kind of thing and see how it feels the next day. I mean, I generally do that. I generally take a piece of advice or an idea or something I want to accomplish or add to my process or whatever, and I'll put it on the shelf for a few days and I'll look at it, marinate on it, then I'll pull it back off and see if it still looks like it's relevant. Is that where you put yourself, or are you at a point where you say, you know what, this is a good idea, I'm going to jump off and do this and see how it works?
I think it's a mix of both, actually. There are some things that I'm like, okay, yes, I'm in the headspace. This makes good sense now that we've talked through it. I'm ready to act. And then there's other times that I think, okay, I probably need to just let this sit for a minute to see if I'm missing any angles or if I feel any differently about it in a day or two. And then I act from there. I'm usually not an overthinker, but I do try to like give myself some time so I'm not making any kind of knee-jerk decisions.
Yeah. I don't know your business at all, 0%. But I'm curious to know, is it fluid enough? In other words, are things change? I just made the statement earlier. It's fluid and things are changing, I can imagine, but with trends and all of those things, is it changing enough and quickly enough for a decision to not be relevant after you made it? I mean, what's the time frame that you have to kind of make these changes with the times? This trend is now going out and we need to get on this other thing. What's the time frame between lens changes, if you will?
Sure. I think it will vary a little bit. So if we're talking about a design trend, we probably, the very short end, a year. Like that's a pretty, fizzle out.
Quick.
There's other things that are probably going to be a good 5-10 years. You could use gray paint as an example with real estate, right?
For sure.
People adopted it. We got away from beiges and creams. We went hardcore into gray, and now we're kind of coming back out of that again, and people are warming it up and they're starting to use color. So if you think about it in that way, you've got a 5 to 10 year range. I would say the thing that changes the quickest is social media in terms of what catches people's attention, what the algorithm is allowing you to do and to be seen, that type of stuff, which is why I have a social media person that does all of the content producing and ideas, because I don't have that brain, and that's not why I started this business. And then otherwise, no, I think I don't think it changes too quickly. I laughed when you said that a minute ago, because what flashed back for me was COVID and supply chain issues and the daily calls of just what ridiculousness was happening. But that has calmed down now.
Yeah, I tell you, that's a good point. And I transitioned that way a little bit. But during COVID, those supply chain issues were gigantic from a new build perspective, because I sell a lot of those. So, we had lumber going up 15-20% in a week, and people were like, why did my cost of my house go up that much? Well, we can't get the lumber, and if we get it, we've got to overpay for it. And we ended up buying lumber ahead of time and all kinds of craziness. That was quite the, hopefully that's a one-time thing for us in the next
here's to hoping
100 years. I did read that, or listen, I'm not sure which, about a little bit about when you go in and you refresh a sorority, and whether it's one you've already done or one that you've been brought in to do? Every 4 years, you've got a new set of students.
Mm-hmm.
Every so often, you've got a different type of thought base for the kids, whether they're going to be, I don't even know what to call them, but they're different taste and clothing, and they're different. What's the average refresh? How long before you do a refresh on some of these? I mean, you do have some repeat customers from what I understand. So what's the timing there?
So I think the sweet spot in a perfect world is 7 years. And so that's assuming that they've been able to, replenish funds, they've taken good care of stuff, and it's just naturally worn because of the number of people that go through the house that live in the facility.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our clients shoot for 5 to 10 years, that same range that I talked about a minute ago, just for all those same reasons. So they can invest in good pieces, they hold up, and then as trends change, they can, roll that over. And then you usually end up with somebody could come in their freshman year, and then it would be another several years before it's changed out.
Right.
As opposed to sometimes I walk in and things that were there when a student's mom lived in the house.
Yeah.
There. So that's what we're trying to get away from.
But obviously you must be having an effect. I mean, when they see the result, that really must kind of precipitate a response like, I didn't think this could be this way. Or what kind of responses are you getting to these? I mean, obviously I'm late to the party because you've been a company for 15 years, but what kind of a response do you get from, I guess, the powers that be in these sororities? Are they just really on board? Oh my gosh, we should have done this 15 years ago. Or what's your response?
We get a lot of happy responses. So a lot of, yes, I wish we could have done this, or, thank you for hearing us and then giving us the space that we need. That we get a lot of squeals from the students, a lot of, happy claps, things like that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the reality is that's where they're spending their college years. And so they want to be comfortable and they want to be proud of it and show it off during recruitment, if that's the case. So there's a lot of factors that go into that are actually very similar to like our personal homes. We want to be proud of it. We want to be comfortable, and however you're going to use it, you need it to suit those needs. And so that's the same with my Greek clients.
Yeah. So what's the structure? Who pays for that kind of thing? Is that the national sorority, or is it a local sorority? Is the college involved in that? Who pays for your services?
Typically, the universities or colleges do not pay for it. The caveat to that is if it's a university-owned facility, they might pay for like flooring, fixtures, like lights, paint, the things for their structure. Yeah. But as far as the furnishings and other like decorations,
no furry couches or anything, right?
No. The furnishings and other decorations, it is either the locally run courthouse core board, or it's the national housing office. It just depends on how they're set up. But it's someone in the organization, some part of the organization is paying for that.
So at what point in your career, in your business lifespan, I loosely kind of put this podcast together based upon a book by Malcolm Gladwell called The Tipping Point. Mm-hmm. People have ideas, and they're usually based upon either a passion or something that they hold as a purpose. In your case, you knew what you were going to study, and you kind of work that way, and you had an idea, and you got a job, and you grinded over that, and you created the purpose, and you created the processes. At what point did you feel like, okay, I've got something that works, and now I can grow it? And maybe you don't feel this way yet, but at what point after that growth period do you feel like, I finally tipped over into success? I can feel like I can step back and go, yeah, this is successful. And if I weren't here, it could still move on in perpetuity.
I think I am at that point of getting very close to feeling like if I were to step back. That has been a perspective that I have used the last few years looking at my business, that if you were to remove me, how would this go on? And like, where would our weak points be? And then how do we fix those? So we're getting very close to me being removable. I have such a great team of other designers. And so that's really been in the back of my mind as I've expanded our team or added in other service providers like social media and such, because I want to make sure this is a sustainable business.
Yeah. So based upon that and what you've started to kind of realize about your company, and one of the big things that you talk about is your mentoring of young women, and we'll call it a passion or we'll call it a purpose. You can call it what you like. Tell me about that and how that affects your daily decisions and what you do to pass on the things that you've learned, you've experienced to the other young women that maybe are going down your pathway, your vocational pathway, or coming out of school. Tell me about your mentorship, what that means to you, what you want to pass along to those young women.
Sure. The reason I started even offering internships within my company was because I remembered very clearly what it was like in college to feel like I don't know how to find a job. I don't know how to even test the waters on what I want to do. And so I just decided, I could use some help, of course, within my work, but also I could give a student an opportunity to come in and see behind the curtain and just see the day-to-day and get some experience that they wouldn't otherwise have access to. So it started as basic as that. And then as I've had interns come through the doors over the years, I learned so much from them. I gain a huge benefit because college students are who we're designing for in these environments. And so by having these students come through the door, they keep the ideas fresh. They keep my eyes open to how things are changing. And so that's super beneficial. But I just really love getting to let them come in and try things out, because in the classroom, there's a certain track of tasks that they're doing, and then coming in and doing this kind of work and, assisting on projects, whether it's an install or doing a design on the computer, they really get to see what they're capable of and then see how it lights a fire in them and makes them excited to do the job. I haven't had a student yet be like, I hate this career, I'm not going to do this, but it's there for that reason too, right? You don't want to spend 4 years or more going towards a career that you suddenly decide you hate. So I don't know. I just think giving them experience, and I think probably a lot more goes on in their mind than I even know, and just how it helps them go forward.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I know that you mentioned social media, and social media it's here to stay.
Yeah.
It's a tool or it's a curse or both. And I would think that the young people coming out of school and doing internships can add a lot to your purview there with the social media. How do you, and I read a lot, I read a ton. How do you, when a student comes in, male or female, how do you explain to them the importance of dialing into their craft and dialing into their work versus, being distracted by their phone or being distracted? A lot of leaders are talking about the millennials and the younger kids are just, they don't know what it's like to be undistracted. And how do you feel about that as a business owner? Is that a big problem in your company?
I have not seen it be a big problem because we are such a small company, and all of my team works remotely. So typically when I have an intern, they're in the office one-on-one with me. Okay. And so I don't know if it's because they're sitting next to the boss or what, but they tend to not pick up the phone really. Yeah. We've had more discussions about it in something as simple as like if we're driving to a job site a couple hours away, like, hey, don't pick up the phone. Let's have a conversation in the car and talk to each other. I taught a soft skills class at UK for a semester, and we talked a lot about like when to have conversations and how to be personable and those types of things, because I do feel like that's a skill that we're lacking now, just as people, but then obviously this younger generation coming out. So all of that to say, if I see that it's an issue, I try to address it kind of gently and nudge and show other behaviors and things that should be happening. We will talk about, at a client appointment, a phone is not appropriate, right? We're taking notes, we're taking photos, we're locked in on the client. But I have been fortunate that I haven't seen it be a huge issue for anybody that's worked on my team.
Now, I did read, though, and you can comment and connect the dots on this, that you said that some of the things that you're doing inside of sororities and other areas is you're creating these spaces that are, I think you call them mental health spaces.
Yes.
Or the spaces that you're creating for students to go either, work on an interview, or it didn't feel like they were going to curl up in a ball and cry. It felt like it was a useful space, but I feel like that's part of the result of this information overload, that kids don't know where to go to just be quiet and to be, still.
Mm-hmm.
Can maybe speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair. You have to think, when you live in these dorms and you live in these sorority houses, you're surrounded by a number of other people. And so while we want those gathering spaces, because human connection is important, it's also important to have a place that you can step away and recharge, or handle something that's private or requires some quiet. So that's what those mental health spaces, some places will call them interview rooms. Because they're multifunctional. You can go in there and take a telehealth appointment, whether that be because you have a cold and you need to talk to the doctor, or because you work on your mental health and you speak to a therapist about it. But that room can also be a place that if you need to take a timed test online, you can do that. You can go in and do a job interview. All of those things that you may retreat like to your dorm, like by yourself, just anywhere you need to go to do it privately. And so then that way the house is meeting all of your needs, both like personally, just one-on-one, individually, or, group connection.
So do you find your company's doing a lot of those now? I mean, is that something that you've always done, or is that something that's come up since COVID, or is it something that it's just we've all kind of moved towards because of the number of people in these sororities is so big that there's got to be a place for people to go and be quiet?
We had a few requests for spaces like this pre-COVID, specifically not so much the like individual space, but private like meeting groups for they've been called mental health clubs, survivors of sexual assault, those types of things, like small spaces. But these more like individual spaces came about as a blend of, COVID times, right? We had all these things going on, and we needed these private spaces. But also, if you've ever been in an older Greek house, they used to have phone booths. So if you received a call, somebody would yell up the stairs and say, "Hey, Terry, you've got a call." And you go down there, you talk to your mom or your girlfriend or whoever it is, right?
Yeah.
Well, those are obsolete now. We don't really go and sit technically and just talk on our cell phone in a closet. So it was. So
you've kind of repurposed that space then, it sounds like.
That's exactly what we did. And so as we started to figure out that's what we could do, then, all these needs were arising. And so it seemed like that was the perfect way to meet that need.
Interesting. Tell me what you can see. Obviously, as a founder and CEO, we're always looking for what's next. We're always looking for the future. We're always trying to get our crystal ball out. What do you see next for your business in particular with when it comes to sorority and fraternities and things? I know Pennsylvania has a statute or a law that they don't allow sororities in Pennsylvania for more than 3 people living together. They're not family. And so that's how they kind of, get around whatever. What do you feel like, what do you feel like's next for your industry? Or maybe you haven't thought about it?
I definitely still feel like it's a growing community. I know there's always discussion, right? Some universities want to ban them. There's talk about these like same-sex organizations and do we keep them, do we not? But ultimately that drive for human connection is what makes these organizations so popular. It's a way that we can go to a university and we can find a smaller group to plug in. Because if you're an athlete, you have that built in with your teammates. So this is a way to, have that group. That's why I did it personally as well. So I definitely think it's still growing, but it's just trying to figure out The big discussion right now is, are the houses the way that they are the best
design format?
So like, do we need to sleep all of these people in this space? Like,
Mm.
is that working? Or do we need to change up how we use these rooms and maybe not as many people sleep in, or they don't sleep in at all? And, what does that look like for our structure? So there's a lot of conversation around that. And I just think it's very interesting to sit back and to listen to what the national offices are saying, what the students are saying, and just see how all of this is going to evolve. Because it's changed a lot over the years already. So I think it'll be neat to see how it goes.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I read about was one of the reasons that Pennsylvania's doing what they're doing is that they're concerned about changing the real estate makeup in those areas with a lot more, college students in, combined area. I mean, that's, anytime the government speaks, I listen with a jaded ear to start with, but that's what they're saying. But for 100 years, there's been sororities and fraternities. And so I just was curious what you felt was going to happen there in the future.
I definitely think it seems regional. There's a lot of discussion in the Northeast about those kinds of changes. And then like some out in California, but not a lot in between. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
So a couple questions that may be a little personal. I'm not gonna back you in a corner at all, but in the gray areas of your life, business and personal, the areas that aren't black and white, the areas that you come across on a daily basis, how do you, as a business owner, as a woman, because I think a lot of times women run into other areas that men don't run into and have bigger hurdles to get over than men have, at least historically. How do you deal with those gray areas that are not black and white? How do you navigate those times?
I'm trying to see if I can think of a good example even on what that might be.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the first things that came to mind, and tell me if this is what you're thinking as far as a gray area. When I started my business, I was 25. And so I remember being really nervous. I'm this young girl, barely out of college. Is anybody ever even going to want to talk to me or deal with me? And so I made the choice to wear glasses.
Oh, yeah. Okay. How about that?
But I wore them on my appointments because I was meeting with people in their 50s and 60s, hiring me to do their home. And I felt like I needed to project more intelligence and life experience, I guess.
Yeah. That's not what I'm talking about, but that's a great question. For all of my life, I thought if I had gray hair, I think I'd do more business.
Yeah.
And, it took me a while. I got a little receding light here. I'm getting older in experience and I get a little more business, but I get what you mean there.
Yeah.
I guess my question was, I think I could make an extra 10 grand here if I did something that maybe some people would look at as okay. And some people would find this to be unethical.
Yeah.
And the reason I came up with this question in real estate, it's very possible to live in the gray areas just to make $1. And so that's kind of where I was coming from because it's very personal to me.
Yeah.
I'm the guy that says, hey, it's black and white. You do the right thing. If it costs you money, that's business. So I was curious how you navigate, if you have those times, or how you navigate them when they come along.
I am a consummate rule follower, and like my friends tease me about it all the time. Like, I'm not going to cross the street, not in the crosswalk. So I would say I pretty much live in the black and white as well. Yeah. And I understand that sometimes like we've made a mistake and we could sweep it under the rug, but we're going to just bring it to the client's attention and, we're going to fall on our sword for that because I don't know, doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, it's happened a bunch of times. I shouldn't say that. That sounds terrible, but it's happened a few times in my career where I've ended up, something that's happened on the other side. Somebody's not paying for something. My client decided to stick their feet in the ground and I end up buying a refrigerator or I end up buying a set of chairs or I end up, and here, you put all your time in and you work and you want to get paid and you want everything. And then all of a sudden at the end, they're like, I'm not paying. And the other person says, I'm not paying. And all of a sudden guess who has to step up? The guy that's, the realtor.
Yep.
So that's the whole idea of my question is how do you navigate? But anyway, that's a great answer. So what's next? Do you see any other opportunities in the future for your company? Anything that you feel like, hey, this is going to be the next big thing? And can you see exponential growth coming, or do you feel like you're going to grow slowly from here?
I'm always a slow and steady wins the race. You can tell I like to live in the safety, right? Like slow and steady, black and white, whatever. Yep. But ultimately, like big dreams. I've always been kind of piddling with a book for a while. It just hasn't been the right fit. So I'm kind of starting to like dabble back into that. And I would love to do some sort of like product line or product collaboration geared towards college students, sorority women, dorm life, something in that realm. So I'm really trying to pay attention to what I think is missing in the market and what I might be able to bring to the table there. But I'm also coming at everything with I'm not going to force it because I've tried to do that kind of stuff before and then it doesn't work. So I'm just kind of keeping my eyes and ears open to see how it works.
Are you identifying any misses in the market, any lacking in the market that maybe you could take advantage of?
Not at the moment. I'm paying a lot of attention to, there's a lot of, I don't know if you know this, but down in like, especially in the Southeastern colleges, there's a lot of dorm room decorators and designers that
is that right? Okay.
Pay these designers to come in and do their students' dorm room.
Wow.
So I'm really like watching that and seeing if there's any of that type of stuff that could translate over to my Greek clients and just that kind of stuff.
There's a lot of individual services out there. I've read about individual movers, on campus. They're coming in, they're providing everything, boxes, storage. You come in, they'll wrap you up and store you when you come back to school. They have you all set up. I mean, that's pretty individualized service. So I imagine there's something, especially for the ladies, I guess, to have their dorm room done in the latest and greatest trends or whatever. But
absolutely. And then I think back to like, why wasn't that around? And then I was like, my parents would never have paid for that. They were like, nope, we'll do it ourselves.
Well, you gotta find the right school that mom and dad are willing to pay for that stuff.
Yeah.
So one of the questions I ask, I was going to ask you this, and I was watching one of your podcasts briefly before I came on, and the 7-Figure podcast actually used that lady for a half a minute. I can't remember her name. I don't want to dismiss her because she helped me out with my podcast. But I always ask if you had 5 minutes with the ladies, let's call it the ladies of the world or the ladies, young women of America. What would your advice be to those folks? Not necessarily if you want to start a business, here's what to do, but things that you've learned as a young college student, a young girl, and then your experience through life to date. Wrap it up in the abridged version of what kind of advice would you give to ladies right now?
The first thing that comes to mind is don't be afraid to ask questions. Asking questions gets you information. It doesn't mean that you're stupid. It means that you're curious and inquisitive. That was a lesson that took me a long time to learn. I was always afraid that if I asked something, it would look like I was a dummy. And now I feel very differently about that. Mm-hmm. And then another thing that anytime I speak to students, I always say, do not let your work become your identity. I think we always want to say, hi, it's nice to meet you. What do you do?
Yeah.
Why? Sure. Why is that the first thing we say? Or, somebody will say, this is Liz. She's an interior designer. And I get that my niche makes it kind of an interesting fact so that it may not be a good example. Yeah. But your work is not you as a whole person. It's a part of you. And it's probably just how you're paying the bills and the thing that you get to do that makes your life possible. It's not your whole life. And so I think we put way too much focus and importance on work. Don't get me wrong. I think having a good work ethic
very important.
Very important. Yep. But it's not you as the entire person. And you have to keep that in mind and think about what makes you up as a person.
Well, then the second part of that question for Liz is, who is Liz Toombs? If you took your vocation out of your bio, who are you?
I am a dog-loving, singing, dancing person that just likes to connect with others. one-on-one and in small groups specifically. So I really value human connection and whatever that looks like.
Okay. And then outside of your company, tell me what your purpose is in life.
I do think it's mentoring, even though that's a huge part of what I do within my company. I find that a lot outside too. People will come to me for advice and, there's opportunities just to share my experience. And I said recently to somebody that sometimes when I'll even forget, something's happened and I'll be talking with someone and I'll share my experience. And I'm like, maybe the only reason that even happened was just so I could share it with somebody else and help them get through that same situation. So you never know. You never have any idea.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm a mentor in my office. So we get about 250 agents and I just have an open door policy. And then I have a more formal mentoring program inside the office. And I get so much joy and so much satisfaction to seeing the light bulb go on. Somebody says, now I get it. Oh gosh, I didn't think of that. And so I get a lot of own personal satisfaction for that kind of thing. And it means a lot to me to be able to give back, and not charge for it. I think everybody's looking to make that almighty dollar, of course, but it's a lot of fun watching the light bulb come on with people. So yeah. So listen, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I know it was different, maybe a little different than you're used to. I watched a lot of your podcasts. They were great, very informational, great story. But I thought there was a little more there, and I appreciate you being a little vulnerable, sharing some of those memories and those experiences with us. And I really hope that we can look to the future and see lots of great things for your company. Where can people go to connect with you if they want to see more about what Liz Toombs is doing?
Our website is pdr-interiors.com, and you can also find PDR on Instagram and TikTok. Okay. And then I personally am on LinkedIn as well.
Now, at one point you had a podcast. You still have a podcast?
I do have a podcast. So I am currently recording for season 2. So probably later in the fall, those will start coming out. Thank you. Nice. It's called Sorority Chat. Sorority Chat.
Okay. So all of you would-be college girls or guys, or would-be, college girls and guys that are in college, if you want to go to her podcast, Sorority. What's it called? Sorority Chat.
Sorority Chat.
Sorority Chat, and check her out. Real great interview. Love the interview. I appreciate you being on, and we hope that you have nothing but success, and that purpose of mentoring young women continues to move forward. So thanks, Liz, for coming on. We appreciate your time.
Oh, I appreciate you, Terry. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
You've been listening to the Grind to Growth to Greatness podcast. Our passion is to talk to the brightest entrepreneurs, CEOs, creators, athletes, anyone who's made it, and dive into their struggles, their successes, and their secrets. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Grind to Growth to Greatness. See you next time.